Overall, I'm a little iffy that team seems to. They're so hit or miss with. Is it Marvin Jones one week? Is it Tate the next week?
Right.
So first 3 weeks of the season, everyone thought Marvin Jones was going to have the biggest game of, the biggest season. It'd be the best, and then he's faded. So I don't know. I'm a little scared of that team, and like I said, I think you could get more value at Theo Riddick than you could at the wide receivers positions for that.
Yeah, I get that. I know that the first 5 weeks of the season, Golden Tate didn't exactly produce. He was actually terrible, and then thereafter he seemed to settle in. But he's only been settled in for a couple weeks. So you're right. Maybe leaning on Golden Tate might not be the best play this week. I think you just talked me out of that, and I'll probably thank you for it. I think you're probably right. How do you feel about guys like Terrell Pryor? He's priced a little high for the gamble you're taking, but it looks like Terrell Pryor is just always open. Pittsburgh stinks against the pass. Stinks.
They're going to have to do something. It doesn't look like...
somebody's going to score in Cleveland. Somebody's going to score.
Well, it doesn't look like it's going to... I was going to say, it doesn't look like it's going to be Corey Coleman anytime soon.
No.
So, maybe. I just don't feel so strongly about it, but...
No, and I don't either, but I do feel like that it just needs to be tossed out there to be batted around. He strikes me as a kid who by next year might be a pretty damn good wide receiver in the NFL.
I agree. I think if you spend the money at around that, I think you might be able to get some more value out of the Jamison Crowder, to be honest with you.
Another guy I enjoy very much, and that was what I wanted to get into here is with the stack. Now that we're down to the wide receiver, tight end positions, I'm not afraid, and I know for the listener out there, if you look every week at the end of the week, Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, when those games end, go look at the winner and look at the lineup that the winner put together, and more times than not, you're going to see, for example, Drew Brees, Mark Ingram, Brandon Cooks, Kobe Fleener. You're going to see 4 players from one team beginning with that quarterback stack, and I keep seeing it. My notes will point it out week in and week out that these guys, they're not afraid to play that running back with the quarterback, with the wide receiver, with the tight end. Now you've got to have that whole team go off, and you got to pick the 4 players that go off.
You don't be so extreme, but you can still do the. Like I said, I noticed in the one that I did a couple weeks ago, the winner was Aaron Rodgers with both Devontae and Jordy.
That's right.
So,
you can't be afraid of it.
Yeah, but so you don't need to go and then try to overdo it all the time. But yeah,
I do.
Situations. Well, but look at how the next week, if you would have tried that with New Orleans, you might be only successful with Willie Snead and Brandon, and so you got to really watch the matchups. But no, you're talking about the high output games where there's a little meat on the bone for everybody.
There is, and like last week, for example, if you and this is where I did have some success was with Mariota, Rashad Matthews. There was a lot of success to be found there. So this week, my stack is going to be Mariota, DeMarco Murray, Rashad Matthews, and I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to throw Delaney Walker in there too.
No,
this game should have a 70-point total.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have a problem with that at all.
If he's able to mix up a couple touchdowns, DeMarco Murray catches passes out of the backfield a lot, and he pops it.
I don't have a problem with Kirk Cousins, Jordan Reed, Jameson Crowder, or even Pierre Garçon, believe it or not, since Deshaun Jackson isn't going to be playing. He's due for a touchdown. Actually, he's definitely due. But you know who I also like, if we're moving on to tight end, since we're talking about the stacks, is if you've gone top-heavy at the previous position, take a look at what Vernon Davis did the last few games.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
$4,500. He's still dirt cheap.
Yeah, unbelievable.
So there's a possibility they should try to shut down Jordan Reed because he's the most prolific weapon on the team.
They shut his ass down last week.
Yeah, he's not. Vernon Davis isn't getting the looks that you want, but for the value. So I could throw him in there, or depending on how much money I have, if I went a little cheaper at my running backs, I would go Jordan. But I really like who I really like this week is Martellus Bennett at the position, to be honest with you.
I think he's going to be pretty well liked.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that because, again, we have so many people to choose from. But with just the overall production from the tight end at New England and Gronk being out, it's not been confirmed, but they're talking about he might have a punctured lung, so I'm pretty much bet playing this week.
I read that he was diagnosed perforated lung and unable to fly.
Okay, yeah.
So if you can't get on an airplane,
yeah, you're not going to take another shot.
Playing. Yeah, you're not playing.
So that bodes really well for Martellus. Obviously, look at what he did last week. Now you give him a touchdown, and then he's going to be at the upper echelon of the position.
Yeah, I think so. I do. I like Martellus Bennett quite a bit. Again, I really like the lean in this Tennessee-Indianapolis game. I'm not afraid of a guy like Jack Doyle this week.
No, I wouldn't. He's so hot or cold that I would much rather go with the Delaney Walker because obviously he's one of the, if you ask me, he's one of the elite tight ends in the league that can put up consistent points and maybe even have just a monster game. So Doyle seems to have gone off the radar, and I think Dwayne Allen is healthy, if I'm not mistaken. So that really that changes my perspective of Doyle.
I gotcha. What I want to point out here that is if you have the ability to shuffle a few things here and there, if you play your cards right with one of these lineups I put together, you can sneak in an Odell Beckham Jr., who's got a great matchup at home against the Bears team. That the Bears team sucks.
Yeah, they do, but if you notice, at least for me, the last couple weeks, I've started wide receivers against the Bears, and they pretty much shut them down.
Yeah, they cut the game against the Bucs last week. Jameis Winston stares everything down. Not that Eli doesn't.
Captain overthrow. So again, you're talking about an elite wide receiver, so there's never really much of a case for not starting one of these guys.
Right.
But when I was making my lineups, I was trying to look at who has the best. If I'm going top dollar, Antonio Brown has a much better matchup on paper.
Okay, yeah, he does, and you are certainly right about that. The one, and both teams, both between the Giants and the Steelers, they both have a lot of mix-it-up. There's a lot of mouths to feed on the field. That Sterling Shepard with the Giants is starting to warrant some looks. He gets open. They really like him in the red zone. Their tight end situation sucks. They can't run the ball, and Victor Cruz will probably never see the field again.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But in Pittsburgh, you've got guys like Sammy Coates he'll take the top off of defense. Eli Rogers they like inside the 20. Jesse James they're not afraid to throw to. And let's not overlook Ladarius Green, the tight end they picked up from San Diego in the offseason. He is now healthy. They did try to give him some looks in the red zone. I don't think he's that good. They always in San Diego were in hopes that was the next Antonio Gates, but the next Antonio Gates just doesn't fall from the sky.
No, but again, when it comes down to it, he's had Antonio Brown's had 40 targets over the last 3 games. So no matter who's there to take some of his looks, at the end of the day, he gets overwhelming. So they'll pick Eli Rogers for a game, or Sammy Coates for a game, or it was Wheaton when he was healthy.
Yeah, it's the constant exploiting of a matchup, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I'm not worried about that. So it seems like Brown is going to get his targets regardless of the other guy who's going off.
Right.
So and again, did Joe Hayden shut him down? I don't think he does. I
don't either.
He's good enough to beat that. So if I'll reiterate, if I was going to go or had to choose, I would pick Brown over Beckham. But again, if Beckham went off, it wouldn't surprise me. Chicago has given up some, but they're only 12th against the pass. So that part of that was my reservations. They're not as bad as a team as they appear to be. A lot of their woes are on offense.
Sure. Well, let's hop on to finish up the tight end department. Let's do our kickers and defense and keep the flow rolling here. So give me your number one tight end overall. Is it Delaney?
My number one tight end, like I said, I like Vernon Davis if you're broke. because he's 4,500, and that could be a real. That's my Lance Kendricks pick. Let's hope he doesn't get hurt his first pass.
Let's keep it
So Delaney Walker I really like, but he's a little more pricey. So my number one pick this week is Bennett because of the overall usage in the Patriots offense at tight end, the fact that Gronk's sick, or injured, and the fact that Bennett's only 5,200. So that's my pick.
Check. All right, man. How about some kickers? I got one. I don't know. I don't love the kicker situation. You might.
I'd like two this week. Again, they're both. I didn't go the most expensive, but if you want to go the higher dollar, and I say that because the two choices I have, they're only separated by $300.
Okay.
I like Tyler Santos against the Bucs, Kansas City at home. I could see that game being a perfect game where he kicks 3 or 4 field goals and they score 2 touchdowns, and that's how they beat the Bucs.
Gotcha.
So I like him at that spot. Again, Dan Bailey could be a great play. Vinatieri is always a decent play. So it depended on how much money you have, but I never had enough money to afford Vinatieri because I really like his matchup too.
Do you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then
I think so. I think
honestly,
that might be the obvious play with Vinatieri if you've got the scratch.
Exactly. And then Dustin Hopkins is a good play too because, like I said, he's pretty productive, and that game is overall going to put points on the board for both teams. So
sure.
I like him. But if you're broke, or if you're close to as broke, I did with 4,600. I really like Matt Prater.
That was my number one choice was Prater.
Okay, so I don't even need to explain it to you.
No, it made sense.
Yeah, they're horrible against the position. So it just seems like that's the type of game where there's going to be, you could see 3 or 4 field goals.
Little bend, don't break. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the perfect. Rather than having a Gostkowski this week who might have 4 points. I started last week.
They could score 4 touchdowns, and you're right. And sorry to cut you off, but you're right. Against the San Francisco team, Gostkowski, New England could maybe we're giving the Patriots too much credit. I don't think we are, but they could win that game 35-7, and you're walking away with 5 points out of your kicker.
Exactly, and meanwhile you could get that out of 1 field goal from Prater because Jacksonville is the worst defense for giving points up to the kicker.
Yeah, I think that is correct. And also, let's not forget to take into account here that certain teams, namely guys like Mike Tomlin, head coaches like Bill Belichick, they are not afraid to go for 2, and your kicker can otherwise be rendered useless. I don't know that anybody in their right mind would start a Chris Boswell in Pittsburgh at all. Why would you start him? They don't kick extra points. They go for 2.
No, I
they go for 2 once a game. They went for 2 all day on Sunday. All day.
Yeah, he was actually a really pretty prolific fantasy kicker last year.
He sure was. But this year, with the longer kick, he had 3 field goal attempts last week, 2 field goals, 0 extra points. In a game where his team scored 30 points, he had 0 extra points.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It is. I mean, he on an average this year, his biggest day was a 12-point day against New England. 5 field goal attempts, and he missed 2 of them. You have no business starting Chris Boswell.
I noticed that FanDuel totally reshuffled how they value kickers, and there's a lot of them that are the same price or close to it.
Yeah.
That it's not. I mean,
it's become 6 and 1/2 dozen the other.
Yeah.
It's just plug somebody in. You might as well just take the cheapest guy with the most value.
Yeah, and look at the matchup and see who's given up the most points. And obviously, if it's a 2 awesome defenses and they haven't given up any points, blah blah blah, go to the higher scoring games that you feel are gonna beat the spread, and you could plug one of those guys in if you can.
Yeah, you might as well throw a frickin' dart at the wall.
Yeah, it is hit or miss. But there are guys that you can kind of tell you don't want. When they have consistently 5 and 6 point games, then obviously there's nothing much. You're not going to pick him and hope he gets 15 or 17 or 20 this week.
Well, speaking of throwing a dart at the wall, let's talk about defenses this week.
Man, it was simple for me. Again, it was one of these keep your fingers crossed, but on paper, and I know it's popular because I've looked. And one thing I want to say, I always make my picks before I do